Welcome to the Generation Why Not podcast with Ruth Klein, a 6-time best-selling author, creative brand strategist, and book coach for small businesses, entrepreneurs, authors, mompreneurs, and professionals today. She is the president of the award-winning firm Expert Celebrity Branding, and the Wall Street Journal calls her the marketing maven. This podcast will be interviewing this generation, those who are doing things differently because of their perceptual shift of what success looks like, and who are driven by attitude, not age. They know anything is possible, and you'll hear how this generation feels the fear and keeps going anyway to achieve their goals and dreams, whether they be in business, sports, the arts, or lifestyle.
Welcome to the podcast, Generation Why Not, where success is based and driven on attitude, not age. I'm really happy today to introduce you to an amazingly talented woman. And I just happened to be talking to her talented daughter here in California, and she was telling me about her mom who started painting later in life, and I couldn't believe it because the paintings were so incredibly beautiful. Well, we have that painter here with us today. Her name is Beverley Barber, and Beverley is a Canadian artist living and working in Ontario, Canada. She does abstract figure painting with watercolors, oil, cold wax, and acrylic, as well as still life and landscape. And she sculpts, believe it or not, in addition to all of that, in clay and bronze. And Beverley's paintings are found in many homes here in Canada and USA. Please help me welcome Beverley. Hi, Beverley.
Hi, Ruth. Nice to talk to you.
Well, welcome being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm honored.
I just was amazed when I looked at your paintings, and your daughter gave me your Instagram, and I was looking, I go, no way. How long has your mother been an artist? And she said, well, actually, she started in her 50s. So can you share with us what basically were you doing before that? And number two, what was the pivotal moment when you decided to go into art?
Basically, before that, I had started out when I was very young doing secretarial work way back in the day. And then when I had my 3 children, my youngest was 5, I decided I needed to do something a little more challenging, and I went through nursing. I went to school 4 years. I worked 4 years and said, oh boy, I really don't like this very much. There has to be something else. Oh, I couldn't believe it. Anyhow, it was a fluke, Ruth. It was just a friend of mine. I had a friend. I lived in the country. It was very slow living. And we used to go to seminars. She was a VON nurse, and I had done the nursing, and we used to take all kinds of seminars. And she talked me into doing a figure drawing workshop with her from some very famous artists from Italy. And I had no idea how to draw. I'd never drawn. I couldn't do a snowman, a stick person, nada.
Beverley, that is so hard to believe. I mean, I believe you, but oh my gosh, after looking at the paintings, that's just so hard. So how did that come about then? How did you end up having this latent potential being an artist?
Oh, it was absolutely bizarre because I had never even thought about art when I was growing up. I really didn't like it in school, and it meant like really nothing until I did this workshop. And then my drawings were so pathetic. I mean, the teacher must have really wondered like why I was there because, you know, everybody else knew how to draw except me. And, but you know, it was so interesting because I was really inspired, which was the first thing because when I took the nursing, I was just looking for something. I didn't know what, but I'd never been inspired before. And this was like fascinating how you can take something that is three-dimensional, put it on a flat surface, and make it appear three-dimensional when it's really on a flat surface. And at the time, I was always interested in the brain and how it functioned, and way more interested in the right side of the brain because it was way more creative and not understood, the same as the logical side. And so I picked up that book by Betty Edwards, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. She's from California. I started it and I worked through every single page and did it faithfully. And by the end of the book, I was drawing. And then after that, I just did workshops between here and in California. I just became obsessed. I drew incessantly. But what was interesting was I had this teacher in Ontario, and he was really all about the feeling. And I did this figurative painting, and I wasn't in a really good place in my life at the time. I was married, but we weren't really all that compatible. We weren't on the same plane or something. I don't know. Anyhow, so he told me I had to burn my painting because it was really scary. So I knew then that art is like a mirror. It really is. And where you're at, it really reflects. So I always know where I'm at every time I pick up like chalk or a brush or whatever by what comes out. And so anyhow, I knew if I wanted to be an artist, I had to make changes in my life, and I did, and it's all good, and everybody's happy, and I just love this new life, and I can't believe it. It's like having a second life.
Isn't that interesting? And, it sounds like you had mentioned that you were doing nursing because you thought it would be something to do, but it sounds like it never truly fulfilled you.
No, it didn't. But my father was chronic care at the time. He had a stroke, and so because I was working, I think it helped to have him. He was able to be in the hospital that I was on nurse in charge on the floor for. And you know what? So if I was able to give him anything, it was that. And so it's so much worth the 4 years going to school to have been able to make that kind of impact and help them.
What I'm hearing, Beverly, it's just so amazing because it tells me that nothing that we are involved in is a waste of time.
No, for sure.
Right? Even though it wasn't fulfilling, it did fill something that it sounds like a blessing looking back at it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I was able to ensure he had the quality of care that, I wanted him to have. And that was really about the only thing I could do to help at that point because, chronic care is chronic care, right?
Right. Well, and it's just fascinating how that is. And then for you, going to school and being there for your dad, and then realizing it really wasn't where you wanted to be. And as I'm listening to you and hear you pick up a book, and I don't think there are any coincidences. And I really believe, I really believe that your spirit knew. Your intuitiveness knew that this book was going to make a difference. And my gosh, it literally taught you and started you on this incredible new, purposeful, fulfilling career.
Oh, absolutely. And it was like something just kept pushing me forward. And it wasn't logic. It wasn't logic.
Yeah.
It was just something, and I've never looked back, and it's so exciting because I'm always being surprised. I never know what will show up.
And what's so interesting is that you went with it. That is all part of Generation Why Not, because here you are coming from the sciences, and the sciences are very much do this and this, and it's logical, and you learn all this stuff. Right? It's one side of the brain, and then the other side of the brain, the fact that that you listened to that intuitive calling, even though you didn't know where it was going to lead you, you still made the decision. It was really a pivotal decision, it sounds like, to move in the direction of the artwork.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I never saw myself as an artist. And I think that was one of the hardest parts for me, was to wrap my head around the fact that I can actually say that this is what I do.
Isn't that interesting? What were you saying before you owned the fact that you were a painter? What would you say if people asked you what you were doing?
I said that I was painting and doing a lot of drawing. I wasn't really sure where I was going. I just tried not to think about it too much, because if I did, I'd get all stressed out.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And when was the pivotal moment when you owned the fact that you are an artist and a painter and a sculptor?
Oh, I think it took me a long time. But just because I always thought you always had to do it. Like, I always thought, well, if you didn't draw when you were young, then, it's like kind of crazy that you're doing it now. But I think it was when I started to see that there was a life in the art, like in the drawing and painting. And that was the teacher I had in Dundas Valley. His name's Gordon Perrier. He always taught that the painting must have like a life force, a life energy, more so than what the original subject is offering. So I was always pushing myself to try to get that energy like on the page.
Isn't that something? It sounds like it's almost like an energy that you were feeling between you and the page and the thought of the ideas.
Oh, absolutely. If you can't feel that energy, you'll never be able to put it through. It's like you become a transmitter. And also to pick up on like what they're thinking, what that whole thing that goes beyond the objective.
Yeah, I love what you just said. You become a transmitter. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I find it so fascinating because ideas are real. Thoughts are real. So these ideas that you have in living color become your art, and words for authors become books.
Yes, exactly. Communication. It's so everything.
Yes. And in both cases, the person transmits the energy between the thoughts and the written word, or the ideas and the look and the thoughts to the painting.
Exactly. And if that's not there, and I mean, for me, that's what I look for first and foremost. And if that's not there, it doesn't matter how well it's executed. It just doesn't cut it for me. But that's my own personal, expectation of what I want to put out there. So it's really interesting.
It really is. Let me ask you this. You had said something which is really awesome, and then maybe you can tell us a little bit about what was happening in your life at that time. You were saying that art is a mirror, and it's very reflective in terms of where you are in your life. So can you share with us, when in life you started this and what was being reflected back to you when you first started?
I was married when I first started. Although, we're super good friends now, I think some people are meant to be friends more than married. And so it just, we were kind of not on the same page. So I was very unhappy. Because of that, it came through in this one painting that I did with this teacher who taught about life force and that. And he said, "Bev, this is so scary. I do not want you to throw it away. I want you to burn it."
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, let's go up in flames. And then I knew, okay, it's like, this is my passion. If I really want to pursue it, it's like I have to open that door. And then that meant closing another door because you can't fake it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It catches up with you eventually if you try. Don't you find that to be the case?
Oh, yeah. And when you're doing something that comes from the subconscious, you know what? You don't stand a chance. It's right there in your face all the time.
It really is. It really is. And, you know, I often say that how we show up in one part of our lives is how we show up in all parts of our lives.
Oh, for sure. Oh, absolutely. Everything you do.
How old were you when you started painting? Because it was like a new life, you said.
Yes, I was 50 when I started, and then I left my husband at the time at 52, but I was 15 when I started going with him. So I didn't know who I was, like, without the relationship. So when I left, I had just started the drawing and painting. I moved to Vancouver Island in a little art studio that was on 15 acres in the middle of the woods by myself for 6 years. And I learned to sculpt in Victoria. So I drove up and down the Malahat to Victoria and took sculpting lessons. And then all I did was my art. And I just needed time to reflect on who I was as a person, because I only knew who I was as a wife and mother and etc. Right? So I needed to hear my own thoughts. It took me 6 years, and then I had fun because I taught children painting, and they were anywhere from 6 to 9 years old, and their parents came free, and that was something that I did with children and their parents so that they could have that time together. And we would go out on different locations. Vancouver Island's gorgeous, and we had so much fun. Yeah.
Boy, it's interesting. You had mentioned that it took 6 years, but it's not so much the destination as what a beautiful 6 years of the journey. And it sounds like you were able to really reconnect with who you are at a deeper level, which you really hadn't had time or even thought about up until then.
Oh my gosh, I know. Someone once asked me, what about you? And I said, who? Like, who? So that will give you an idea. And, and I was in the woods, so I was in nature, and like, it was beautiful. I had a deck put out on this artist studio place because it was 2 levels, and I used to sleep under the stars at night. It was unbelievable. The hardest part for me moving back to Ontario was to sleep under a roof. It was horrible.
Wow. It sounds beautiful. It really sounds beautiful. Let me ask you, what are 2 things you wish someone had told you during the toughest time when you were making that huge transition? You wish they had told you that maybe you can let someone know now.
Well, just to trust the process, and nothing happens overnight. Like, this has been 20 years. Nothing happens overnight. And it's the day-to-day showing up, doing what you want to do, and not letting negativity or negative thoughts or self-doubt or fear. Like, fear was a huge thing that I was dealing with. I didn't want to be afraid of anything anymore. And that's why I was in the woods and all that. And I was doing everything I could to fight any form of fear. So I think we have to be just kind of somewhat warriors when it comes to dealing with fear, and just move forward, and try not to think too much. And when you catch yourself like going into fear, self-doubt, worry, like worry's horrible, to just switch gears and, picture where you want to be and what is out there for you that is so exciting and new and full of surprise and a whole new life.
Yeah. It sounds like you pulled yourself out of fear by catching the negative, obsessive thoughts of fear and worry and converting them into thoughts of what you wanted. Is that what you did?
Yes, but also along with that, I had to work every day. because that kept my mind busy and occupied. So if I wasn't working, then I found I got a lot more stressed and I didn't sleep as well. So it was really important that every day I worked.
Right. And when you say work, that means you were painting.
Yep. Yeah. And sculpting. I learned how to sculpt out there too. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And you pushed yourself through the fear by being in the woods and doing things probably for the first time that you didn't even think you could do.
Oh, absolutely. And when I left, because I had been married so many years, I couldn't stop shaking. Like my teeth were chattering for years. It wasn't an easy transition at all.
And looking back now, what would you say about that time of your life?
Well, I had some really good friends that helped me through it. And I had a friend on the island who she worked in the healthcare services and that sort of thing. And she was always there. And it was so great. She's so logical. She kept me like on track and helped me, find places to stay and that sort of thing. The place in the woods was a CEO of one of the hospitals that she worked with. So I was really lucky. And my children, oh my gosh, my children are amazing. I'm so blessed, I really am. I used to drive up and down to LA. Tanya didn't have Ava then. She had a cat, and I used to help her with her cat. And then my youngest son was at the university in Victoria. He's now in Seattle. They were there a lot. My older son is in Ontario. He wasn't able to help. But it's okay because they were there and they didn't have to do anything. Just, show up once in a while, and that was great. And we always had fun.
I love that. I absolutely love that. The best place where people can contact you is, oh my goodness, I follow you on Instagram at Beverley Barber. And for those of you who want to follow Beverley, just to see these beautiful pictures, maybe something for your beautiful home, it's Beverley Barber. And also you have Facebook, Beverley Barber Fine Arts. Anything else you would like to share with our listeners? One other great idea or point?
If you have a hunch or there's something that you're interested in, listen to that little voice that's so hard to hear most of the time, and give it a chance to live. Because honestly, the fact that I do what I do blows my mind, because not that I'm bragging or anything. It's just that I would have never believed that I could do what I'm doing way back then when I couldn't draw like a stick man or a snowman. Do you know what I mean?
Right. And now you're selling your artwork around the world. So congratulations, Beverley. Thank you so much for being part of Generation Why Not today.
Thank you so much for having me and talking to me. I just loved every second of it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you for joining Generation Why Not. We look forward to receiving any questions you may have, as Ruth will be answering them on this podcast. Follow Ruth.Klein on Instagram or email rklein@ruthklein.com. Until next time, a short reminder that success is driven by attitude, not age.